Hi, I'm Dr. Deb Butler, and you are listening or watching Thinner Peace in Menopause and Beyond. This is episode number 463. Well, hello, all my dear friends all over the world. You can see me and you can hear me. If you're always listening to me and you would like to see what I'm talking about, I'm on YouTube now at Dr. Deb Butler, Deb Butler, Butler, where you can see this. And I'm actually going to show you some things that might be very, very helpful to you that I talk about. So, hello and welcome. If you've been listening for a while, this may be excellent for you. If you've never listened before, and this is your first podcast, this will be excellent for you. Because one of the things that I would like to introduce to you today, number one, is the concept of a beginner's mind. And it's used a lot in Tibetan and Buddhist meditation about having a beginner's mind. Now, why do you think that is? A beginner's mind means that you don't know very much and you're open to learning. If you've been listening to my podcast for a long time and you know a lot of the tools and concepts that I teach, I want you to have a beginner's mind when I talk today, because this may be something that you've heard, but maybe you've never seen it, or maybe you've never heard it in the way that I'm going to talk to you about it today. And maybe it'll go into your brain like you've never heard it before if you stay open and have a beginner's mind. And if you're here for the first time and you already have concepts of what this may or may not be, then I want you to have a beginner's mind too, as if you didn't even know what I was going to talk about and you didn't have any previous thoughts about what this could or couldn't be. A beginner's mind can help your brain download things that it may not have been able to do before because you've gotten in the way of your own brain, which is what Thinner Peace in Menopause is all about. It's not about what you're eating half as much as it is about what you're thinking, what is going on in that brain of yours. And one of the ways that I can help you with that is, number one, what I will not do and what I've told you I will not do is I won't tell you what to eat. I'm not going to tell you what time to eat, and I'm not going to tell you what kind of diet I think you should be on if you're in menopause. I know it's harder to lose weight for you or you wouldn't be here. Or maybe you're a woman and you've been struggling with weight your whole life and menopause is making it harder than ever. I know that was me too. But one of the things that I figured out, and I've been talking it a lot in all of my 463 episodes, is this, is that if you've been waiting for an external source to tell you how to listen to your own body, you may be very frustrated if you're in menopause. But what I want to do is help you be more connected to your body because you're in menopause. I want you to believe that being in menopause is the best thing that ever happened to you, or the best transition, or the best transformation. Because that's what this podcast is all about, is how to make this into the best thing that ever happened to you, even if you're gaining weight. And I think your weight can be a gift. If you're trying to lose weight, it actually can be a gift if you're willing to have a beginner's mind and look at this in a different way, so that maybe it's not so much what you're eating, but why you're eating. And if you're eating when you're not hungry, which is what I'm going to talk to you about today, and what I've been talking about, I want you to be able to get my Jumpstart Your Weight Loss and Menopause guide. It's free and it's going along with the podcast that I'm doing, especially in these last few episodes. So in order to get this free guide, all you have to do is go to drdebbutler.com, Dr. Dr. Deb, D-E-B, Butler.com /change, and you can receive this guide. And it's going along with what I'm talking about today. And I'm actually going to show you some slides on what I want to talk about to even make it clearer, since now not only do you have to listen to me, you can see me, so you can see this also if you don't want to get the guide. So one of the things that I always talk about, if you've been listening for a long time or this is your first time, is that if you're in menopause, your appetite has been decreasing for quite a while. Now, the interesting concept about this, because I think a lot of you have heard this, but if your appetite is increasing and your metabolism is decreasing, really your appetite should be decreasing too. And yet so many people tell me that they feel like their appetite is getting bigger. They're hungrier than ever. Maybe that's what you think too. You're hungrier than you've ever been, and you're gaining weight and you don't even know why you're gaining weight, or you know why you're gaining weight because you're so hungry all the time. And if you've been trying to follow a diet your whole life, or if you've just been trying to figure out what that food is or what the right food is, I want to give you a nice, fresh start. And I want you to use your beginner mind to think about this. Number one, I'm here to tell you that your metabolism is decreasing. And if your metabolism is decreasing, it's not a bad thing. It just means that your appetite has to be decreasing too, which means you should be eating less because you're less hungry. So if you're hungrier than you've ever been, or you're eating more, or you want to eat more and you're trying to restrict yourself, which is making you want to eat even more, then I want to talk to you about how I work this Jumpstart Your Weight Loss and Menopause, and how simple it can be, that you're going to actually be able to start with me today. How to jumpstart your weight loss and menopause. And I'm not going to tell you what to eat, and I'm not going to tell you what time to eat. I'm going to tell you how to think and how to connect back to this beautiful body of yours that has always been with you, only either maybe you've ignored it or maybe you haven't liked it. So now's a good time to not only make friends with your body, but to be connected to your body, because it's got some wisdom. And the first piece of wisdom is this: you're not as hungry as you're used to be. You actually don't want to eat as much food as you used to eat. And from all the charts that I've seen with my research, is that if you're eating the same amount of food that you ate when you were 20 years old and you're 50 years old now, you would have gained 30 pounds by now if you're eating the same. And that's because things in your body are changing, which is not a bad thing. But you've got to be aware that your appetite is going down. So how can you do that if you've never done it before, to connect to that, this mind-body connection? So I want to share with you my Jumpstart guide, and then I'm going to show you my first concept. Now, I've talked about it many, many times in my podcasts about eating when you're hungry and stopping when you're full. I know, but I want to show it to you, and I want to show you the guide that I use. And then I want you to be able to picture it in your own head when you go to eat your next meal. So first of all, I'm going to share with you my guide. This is Jumpstart Your Weight Loss and Menopause, and this is what the guide looks like. And now I want to show you what's inside of it. One of the first things that you're going to see is a physical hunger scale. And this physical hunger scale, which I've described in many different ways on my podcasts, I really want you to be able to look at it. If you're still listening, use a beginner's mind when I talk to you and I explain this to you, because there's a very big difference between thinking you're hungrier than ever in menopause and actually your appetite is decreasing. How can the two be so different? And the reason is because you actually had two different scales going on in your brain. You have the physical hunger scale, the mind-body connection of your body giving signals to your brain to tell you when it's time to eat. And this is called the physical hunger scale. And the biggest question that anybody ever asked me when I was going through my own journey to try to figure out how to lose this weight in menopause and how to stop dieting and how to start listening to my body, it all started with somebody asking me, do you know when you're hungry and do you know when you're full? Do you eat when you're hungry and do you eat when you're full? Now, hunger, if you're looking at my hunger scale, goes from a 0 to a -10, which means you can be neutral. Your stomach can be empty at a 0, or your stomach can be so empty at a -10 that you're starving. And in between are a bunch of numbers. And so hunger can go anywhere between from a 0 to a -10. Now, what I am asking you to do is to start figuring out what a -2 in your body feels like, which is the signal to eat. Now, listen, when you were born and when you were a kid, you didn't need the scale to tell you when to eat and when to stop because you were wired to do this. We're all wired to do this. And the reason that we're not connected to this decrease in appetite is because we have somehow lost the connection with our body. We've stopped listening to it. We've stopped listening to hunger scales and fullness because we started paying attention to external things. Maybe it's a diet. Maybe it's somebody telling you something. Maybe it's somebody telling you should never eat something again and you want to eat it. Or maybe it's like somebody would tell, I remember thinking that hunger meant I was losing weight. So it's like, how hungry could I get? It was almost like it felt like it was a good thing. So I learned to ignore my physical hunger. If I was following something and it said I can only eat at certain times and I was hungry, I learned to ignore that hunger because I had to wait, because there was something wrong with me, because I had to lose weight, because I didn't have the control that other people had. When in reality, I just lost the connection to my body. And maybe that's where you are too. You've just lost the connection. And maybe menopause is a great time to get that connection back. So we're just going to start with, are you hungry and are you full? And you're looking at my chart and you see the scale from 0 to a -10. And then we look at the -2. And the feeling of that is going to be the tiniest whisper or a rumble of hunger, but it's not growling. That's going to be your signal to start eating. Now, a -1 might feel more like what I was saying before, more of a whisper. It's time to start thinking about what you're going to be eating or preparing your meal. It's really difficult if you go out to eat and you're below a -2. Let's say you're a -3, -4, -5. If you get too hungry, there's a good chance that your brain's going to say something that has no nutritious value looks so good because it's going to increase your cravings, right? Because you're extra hungry. When you're extra hungry, your brain goes out the window and cookies sound really, really good. So you don't want to wait too long to eat. So we're going to start paying attention to what a -2 feels like in your body as I did in my body. And the way I wrote it here is that you're probably going to maybe feel a little grumble, but it's not growling and you probably could go longer. That's a good sign that it's time to eat. You don't want to wait. You might be used to making yourself wait. So you're going to start using your beginner's mind to understand when it's time to eat, what this -2 feels like. It's a rumble, but not a growling. And maybe even, you start feeling like just a drop tired, or you start feeling like your brain's just not working as well. Or maybe that means that you're too hungry if your brain gets like that. You need to find out for yourself what it feels like in your body, this -2. Or maybe you let yourself go too long. Be curious about what that feels like in your body. That's the whole thing right now is you want to start being curious so that you can get connected to your body and your body's signals of hunger. Because signals from your body aren't always just about hunger, right? It's about tired. It's about pain. It's about all the things. It's about your intuition. Your emotions live in your body too. So listening to your body is the best connection that you're ever going to make. If you haven't had it up until menopause, this is a great time to do it. Because, boy, if you can really realize that you're not hungry and you're eating a lot more, it's a good time to reevaluate what you want to do. But first, you have to feel it and know it. Okay, so we talked about what your hunger feels like. Now let's talk about what your fullness feels like. So, fullness can go from a 0 to a plus 10 too. Plus 10 is stuffed and 0 is neutral. Plus 10 to me is like Thanksgiving in the old days for me, where I felt like I had to take my clothes off in order to be comfortable or go to sleep. That might be a plus 10. But what I'm looking for is a plus 2 now. That's the connection when your body is saying, stop. I'm satisfied. I'm not too full. There's a lot more room, right? From a plus 2 to a 10, there's a lot more room to eat. And maybe that's what you felt, but you thought you should fill it up even more. That's why when people say they're full, what do they really mean? If it goes from 0 to a plus 10, and I'm making up numbers, but I believe that there are periods in our body, or levels in our stomach where we could stop eating, but it stretches, so we could put more in. And what is the number when it's time to stop? When you're satisfied, when you feel light, when you feel energetic, like you could go for a walk, that's your plus 2. And what I would love for you to be doing this week is to be connecting to these numbers. I talk about these numbers a lot in all of my podcasts, but it is the beginning and it is a reminder. And I want you to use that beginner's mind to really connect with these numbers this week. And if you're watching this video, you can look at the numbers on the scale here and you can see you want to be in that purple zone, my favorite color. Eating between the twos is what I call it, but it's also following your appetite. And one of the things that a lot of my clients will say to me is, oh my gosh, I've been eating all this food and I really realize I'm not hungry. What I'm going to talk to you about in my next episode with my Jumpstart guide is the emotional hunger scale, which is why you're eating so much more, even though your appetite is decreasing. If you pay attention just to your appetite, you will automatically just start eating less. And of course, eating mostly fuel food, which is nutritious food for your body. And we'll talk about that a little bit more too. But for this week, you're looking at the physical hunger scale and you're learning how to eat between the twos. You can visualize this in your brain. You can see this if you're with me on YouTube. You can look at the scale, but the goal is to eat between the twos. And if you notice that you want to wait and go below a 2, or you want to eat more than a plus 2, then you become curious and say to yourself, fascinating. And that's all. That's all I want you to do this week. And when we touch again next week, I'm going to talk about the emotional hunger scale again, and we're going to go over it visually so you can see it. And then we're going to put the two together. But just for this week, it's just the physical hunger scale and realizing that you don't need that much food anymore, that you are getting older. Your body or metabolism is decreasing and it's perfectly normal and it's okay. But if you want to keep eating once you know these numbers, then you're going to love the next episode. There's so much that I can help you with without ever telling you what to eat. So listen, everybody, I'm giving you some of the basics. If you've heard it before from me, I want you to use your beginner's mind and use this week to understand what your twos are. If you've never heard or seen me before, I want you to ask yourself, are you hungry? Are you full? And start seeing if you can find your own numbers. And get my Jumpstart guide because it goes with what I'm talking about right now, regardless if you're looking at me or listening to me. Now, listen, I would never, ever end this podcast without saying to you that I want you to start this week and I want you to find your twos, but also that I want you to be very, very, very kind to yourself. And I will see you next week. Bye bye.